So Drake is being called out right now by Suge Knight because Drake posted a Tupac chain on his Instagram, and you guys know he's a fan.
When Drake decided to flex with Tupac's chain, he probably thought it was just another power move, but now the whole culture's on fire. Suge Knight has officially stepped in, and let's just say it's getting ugly fast. New footage is blowing up online showing a heated confrontation between Suge and Drake, and since that moment, things have gone completely off the rails. This all started with what looked like a simple Instagram story flex, but it turned into the most chaotic storm of 2025. Drake popped up on August 24th, posting himself iced out with a diamond-drenched Death Row Records pendant, a piece that instantly had hip-hop fans losing their minds. It wasn't just about the shine, though. It was what that pendant represented. Drake didn't just buy a piece of jewelry, he touched something sacred, Tupac's legacy. And here's where it gets wild. The pendant in Drake's post looked identical to the one Pac wore on the All Eyes on Me album cover. Fans zoomed in, compared frames, analyzed every sparkle like detectives, and suddenly the rumor hit the streets. Drake didn't just buy a replica. He might have dropped serious cash for the real chain once owned by Tupac himself. We're talking big money here. Rumors say anywhere between a few $100,000 to over $1 million, but it didn't stop there. See, this isn't the first time Drake's dipped into Pac's legacy for clout. Back in July 2023, he made headlines after dropping over $1 million on Pac's self-designed crown ring at a Sotheby's auction. People praised it then, calling it a tribute, but this new move, this one hit different. Now, fans, critics, and even Death Row OGs are calling him out, saying Drake's not honoring Pac, he's profiting off him. And that's when Suge Knight, yes, the man who helped build Death Row from the ground up, decided enough was enough. That ring? Oh, that was certified history. It came with everything, official paperwork, provenance letters, matching serial numbers, even documents tracing it straight back to Yasmin Fula, Pac's godmother. Nobody could question that one. It was locked down tighter than Fort Knox. The authenticity was bulletproof, and Drake knew it. That ring was a legitimate slice of hip-hop royalty, no doubt about it. But this Death Row chain situation? Nah, this one hit different.
Bought Tupac's crown ring for over $1 million at a New York City auction, but what you might not know is that this was actually Tupac's ring that he was wearing at his last public appearance. But there's actually a cooler backstory to all of this. So, Tupac was actually engaged in 1996 to Kidada Jones, the daughter of Quincy Jones. And if you pay attention to the bottom of the ring, where the band is, it reads out Pac and Dada 1996.
There was no Sotheby's, no Christie's, no fancy auction catalog. Just Drake casually posting the chain with zero context, like it magically appeared out of thin air. No seller info, no certification, no paperwork, not even a mention of where it came from. He just dropped the photo and let the internet go wild. And they did. Within hours, fans, bloggers, and hip-hop historians were losing it, arguing over whether Drake had just flexed Pac's real chain or a high-end replica dripping with controversy. That silence, that was the first red flag. The second was the timing, August 2025, barely a year after Drake took that public L from Kendrick Lamar, one of the nastiest rap beefs in decades. People started connecting dots fast. Some said it was Drake paying tribute, others said it was petty revenge, a slick way to stir the West Coast again after that brutal lyrical beatdown. Remember, that beef had already dragged Pac's name into the mud when Drake used AI to clone Tupac's voice on his tailor-made freestyle. The backlash was nuclear. West Coast legends called it disrespectful, fans were furious, and Death Row loyalists were fuming. The pressure got so bad, Drake had to pull the track down completely. So when he reappeared flexing Pac's chain with no proof, no receipts, and a smirk on his face, yeah, people started saying it loud. This ain't homage, this is trolling. Real ones know, this ain't just some shiny pendant we're talking about. That Death Row chain is a living artifact of hip-hop history, carrying more weight and legacy than most rappers today can even comprehend. It's not just jewelry, it's a badge of power, danger, and loyalty that defined an entire era. Back in the day, Suge Knight didn't design that chain to be a fashion statement. He built it as a symbol of dominance. That electric chair pendant wasn't just metal and diamonds, it was a warning. It represented everything Death Row stood for: authority, rebellion, and a wild kind of fearlessness that had the entire music industry on edge. When you saw that chain, you knew the person wearing it wasn't just part of the game. They were the game. Only a chosen few ever touched one of those authentic death row chains. Suge kept it tighter than a vault, personally deciding who was real enough to earn it. Reports say only 5 to 10 real pieces were ever made, ever. That's it. You had legends like Snoop Dogg rocking one early on before switching to his own doggy-style designs when things with the label got too heated.
Still feels like the shade of Not Like Us, Kendrick Lamar battle. So I'm gonna buy the chain anyway. I know the West Coast doesn't like me and Tupac's your savior. Guess what? Death row. Around my neck. You know what I mean? What y'all gonna do?
Maybe a couple of other true death row family members had one, but that's where the list ends. These weren't chains you could just walk into a jewelry shop and buy. Nah, these were sacred symbols, given out like royal medals to those who truly represented the row. And the influence, insane. That chain became one of the first pieces of jewelry in rap that carried gang-level respect. The energy around it was so real that schools across the West Coast had to ban students from wearing anything resembling it, because fights, tension, and drama kept erupting anywhere that Death Row logo appeared. That's how powerful it was. It wasn't just bling, it was identity, loyalty, and street history all in one chain. Rocking that death row pendant wasn't just flexing success, it was declaring loyalty to a whole movement. That chain shouted you were part of something bigger, something raw and untouchable. Death Row wasn't a label, it was an empire built on power, fear, and West Coast dominance. To get why this chain hit so hard, you gotta look back at how Death Row came up. Founded in 1991 by Suge Knight, Dr. Dre, Dick Griffey, and the DOC, the label flipped the industry upside down. They dropped classics like Dre's The Chronic and Snoop's Doggy Style, setting the bar for gangster rap. Their street rep and ruthless business moves made Death Row both feared and respected. Nobody dared test them. And that chain, pure art mixed with danger. Crafted in 14-karat yellow gold and flooded with 3 carats of hand-set diamonds, it gleamed like power itself. That electric chair design wasn't random, it was symbolic, a golden warning that you were part of a crew nobody crossed. Roughly 2 to 3 inches wide, the pendant sat heavy on your chest, literally and metaphorically. When you stepped in with that piece, the room changed. Then came Tupac, the moment that locked this chain into legend. When Suge Knight dropped $1.4 million to bail him out in October 1995, Pac joined Death Row and was handed Suge's original fully diamond-encrusted chain, the same one that immortalized him on the All Eyes on Me album cover. That's not just jewelry, that's hip-hop history glowing under the studio lights. Drake's obsession with Tupac memorabilia has always been a touchy topic in the culture. Back in 2023, when he copped Pac's crown ring, people showed love because it came through all the right channels. Legit paperwork, verified history, the whole deal. But when it comes to how Drake's used Pac's name and image in his rap beefs, that's where folks from the West Coast start giving him the side eye. To them, Pac's legacy ain't for branding, it's sacred. So the second Drake posted that chain, boom, chaos. The internet exploded. Fans, collectors, and hip-hop purists started zooming in on every inch of that photo, comparing it to old shots of Pac rocking the original chain. Some were calling it a dope tribute, saying Drake was keeping the culture alive, while others were calling him out, saying he was just buying street cred instead of earning it. The debate split hip-hop straight down the middle. And what made it worse? The timing.
And people are just like, why? Why?
Yeah.
This belongs in a museum, or this belongs with Pac's family. This doesn't feel right. So there was a lot of conversation about that.
Drake had just taken that brutal lyrical beating from Kendrick Lamar, the man everyone calls the modern king of the West. So suddenly, every move Drake made connected to California had people watching, analyzing, waiting to catch him slipping. To many, this wasn't admiration, it looked like damage control. And when real West Coast OGs started chiming in, the tone changed quick. These weren't just fans online, they were respected voices saying out loud that Drake might have crossed the line this time. When Rappin' Forte, who already had past issues with Drake for flipping his lyrics without credit, heard about the chain, he snapped. He straight up said Drake had no right to own something that's sacred to West Coast hip-hop history. To him and a lot of OGs, that Death Row pendant wasn't just jewelry, it was a trophy from an era built by struggle, loyalty, and real street bloodlines. Then came the bombshell. People started questioning the chain's authenticity. The same experts who verified Drake's $1 million Tupac ring said this new piece didn't have that airtight paperwork or any official provenance. No receipts, no certification, nothing. That's when the culture's detectives got to work. Memorabilia experts began spotting inconsistencies between Drake's chain and the verified originals from the 90s. Things like diamond clarity, engraving patterns, and even the metalwork didn't line up. The finish was too modern, the craftsmanship too clean. Real heads started whispering that the piece might be a replica, not the genuine death row chain that once hung around Pac's neck. Collectors online broke down side-by-side comparisons, highlighting off details, diamond counts, setting flaws, gold weight. Every little mismatch became proof that Drake might have gotten hustled, but nobody was ready for what came next, because the man who could shut it all down once and for all was about to speak from behind bars. 2 days after Drake's Instagram flex lit up every corner of the internet, a call came straight from R.J. Donovan Correctional Facility in San Diego. The voice? None other than Marion Suge Knight himself, the co-founder of Death Row, Pac's Ride or Die, and the man who was literally in the car the night Tupac was shot.
Look, he's got the options. It just, I don't feel like he's let the battle go, so I'm suspect.
Oh no, let me clear that up for you, Shawnee.
Yeah.
He hasn't let the battle go. Let me fix that up for you. It's not over.
So I'm like, you know, is this Death Row purchase genuine or is it? I mean, I guess it would be hard to tell.
From inside his cell, Suge was ready to talk, and what he said next would rock hip-hop to its core, sending shockwaves through social media and racking up millions of views overnight. On August 26, 2025, Suge Knight made a call that shook hip-hop. He phoned into The Art of Dialogue, a podcast famous for spilling the raw, unfiltered truth about rap history. What followed was an interview that exploded online, hitting 1.8 million views in record time and sparking a social media war that had fans, rappers, and historians taking sides like it was a courtroom trial. Suge spoke with that old-school authority that only someone who built Death Row could carry. Every word hit like gospel, deep, deliberate, and loaded with receipts. This man wasn't a spectator. He was the architect of the Death Row chain itself, the mind behind its design, the boss who decided who was worthy to wear it. When Suge talks, the streets listen. And this time, he didn't hold back. He started calmly, then dropped a bomb so big it shattered Drake's credibility in one sentence. According to Suge, that chain Drake flexed wasn't just fake. It was based on a false story. He claimed the whole idea that Tupac had his own Death Row chain was pure fabrication. Suge laid it out crystal clear. Pac never owned a personal Death Row chain. The one he wore on the All Eyes on Me album cover, that wasn't his. It was Suge's own chain, loaned out for Pac to wear during photo shoots and appearances. The revelation flipped everything. Fans who had believed for decades that Pac's chain was his symbol of loyalty were suddenly questioning the entire narrative. Suge wasn't just saying Drake's piece was fake. He was rewriting hip-hop history right from behind prison walls. The original Death Row piece was a monster, fully iced out, from pendant to links, pure luxury forged in legend. But this wasn't just about proving what was real or fake anymore. This was about rewriting hip-hop history itself. For decades, fans and collectors thought they knew the story, but Suge Knight just flipped it all upside down.
Person, I got Death Row chains, and I'm the only one handing them out. I gave one to Snoop at first. Andre had a Death Row chain. There was a few of the homies. None of the on Death Row had Death Row chain. Dog Pound didn't even have Death Row chain.
Speaking from behind prison walls, Suge's voice carried power and pain. You could feel the emotion through the phone. This wasn't just a man defending a brand. This was someone who had lived it, who had lost his brother. The bond between Suge and Tupac wasn't business. It was blood deep. Back in October 1995, when Suge dropped $1.4 million to bail Pac out, that moment sealed their brotherhood forever. Pac even said it himself, "You my big bro." That wasn't a catchphrase. It was family. So when Suge said Pac wore his chain, it hit hard. It wasn't about status. It was trust, loyalty, and love between two men who had each other's backs when the world turned cold. That raw emotion made Suge's story untouchable. It just felt real. But then Suge started breaking down the evidence, and that's when it got brutal for Drake. He called out specific details proving the chain was a knockoff, and the biggest red flag, an inscription on the back of Drake's pendant that read, "All Eyes on You, 1996. Suge swore up and down that no authentic Death Row chain ever had writing on the back. According to him, the real ones were one of a kind, never for sale, never engraved, and never duplicated. Each was a private badge of loyalty, earned, not bought. So when Drake flashed his version, Suge made it clear, that ain't history, that's imitation. That inscription referencing "all eyes on me" was the smoking gun. It screamed replica, a flashy commercial copy made to fool collectors. Not a true piece from the 90s death row era. Suge didn't sugarcoat it either. He came with that trademark raw energy, the same no-nonsense tone that made him a legend in hip-hop circles. His message to Drake, straight up, handle your business. Suge said it plain. Drake got played by whoever sold him that chain. This wasn't about humiliation, it was about getting justice. Word on the streets was that Drake dropped somewhere between hundreds of thousands to over $1 million for the piece, and Suge made it clear the anger shouldn't be aimed at Drake but at the scammer who finessed him. Surprisingly, Suge showed Drake respect. He didn't come at him like an enemy, he actually recognized Drake's genuine admiration for Tupac. That's what shocked people most. Instead of blasting Drake for clout, Suge took a more calculated stance, framing himself as the protector of both Drake's money and Tupac's legacy. He warned Drake to team up with real pack representatives, not the shady dealers trying to profit off fakes.
He was scared to fight Bone. Bone wanted to fade. He fired on him through the window. Bang, bam, get out, nigga, get out. Instead of Suge, what'd he do? Threw the truck in reverse, threw it in drive, threw Bone off, bagged over him, ran over his leg, and then tried to make a run for it. See, this is the world don't want to see it for what it. Suge Knight got 28 years and killed his homie because he was scared to squabble Bone.
Work with people who loved Pac, not those jealous haters pretending they did, Suge said, drawing a line between authenticity and greed. And just when people thought the drama was cooling off, Suge wasn't done. The very next day, August 27th, 2025, he hopped on another show, Collect Call, a podcast that had been featuring him during his prison sentence, and that's when things took an even crazier turn. That second interview was pure chaos in motion. Suge doubled down, expanding on his earlier claims and diving even deeper into the history behind those death row chains. What really blew people's minds was that he was doing all this from prison, yet still managing to shake the entire hip-hop world. The man's influence was undeniable. He was literally behind bars, but still running headlines. Suge started breaking down the technical details, describing craftsmanship so elite it made Drake's Instagram chain look like costume jewelry. He explained that real death row chains were fully iced out, not just the pendant, but every single link. That kind of work wasn't cheap. Even back in the 90s, you'd be dropping tens of thousands just in materials and labor. These weren't showpieces, they were handcrafted symbols of power. And then, boom! The moment those interviews hit the internet, it was like someone dropped a match in gasoline. Within hours, social media was drowning in memes, debates, and wild theories. Every major hip-hop blog ran with the story, turning it into one of the biggest cultural moments of 2025. The numbers went insane. X posts about the chain drama pulled 5.6 million views, while TikTok videos broke 3.2 million more. Hashtags like #DrakeChain and #Suge Knight were trending non-stop. Some users were breaking down jewelry specs like experts. Others were roasting Drake with memes about getting finessed by a slick dealer. It was comedy and chaos rolled into one. Then came the ultimate cosign, Wack 100, one of the most influential figures in West Coast hip-hop management, hopped on a live stream with DJ Academics that same day, August 27, 2025, and fully backed Suge's claims. Wack didn't hold back, clowning the piece as a plastic plaything compared to the real 90s death row chains. He pointed out flaws in diamond quality, craftsmanship, and build, saying straight up, "If that's real, I'm Michael Jackson." At that point, the internet wasn't just talking, it was exploding. Then came Reggie Wright Jr., the former head of security at Death Row Records, stepping in like the final witness in a courtroom. His voice carried serious weight. This was a man who lived through the Death Row era, guarded the artists, and literally watched those iconic chains being made. Reggie's testimony didn't just support Suge's story, it cemented it. He dropped technical details so specific that only an insider could know them. We're talking about exact diamond counts on the electric chair emblem, how the belt section was set, and the subtle design features no counterfeiter could ever guess from a photo. That kind of knowledge can't be Googled. You had to be there. Reggie said it plain. Drake's chain didn't match the real specs, not even close. But this story wasn't just about one fake piece of jewelry. It opened the door to a bigger problem. The hip-hop memorabilia market had become a gold rush, especially for anything tied to Tupac Shakur. Collectors and investors were paying sky-high prices for anything even rumored to be connected to him. And when the money gets that big, the scammers come running. Reggie explained how the market's growth had outpaced its authentication standards, allowing slick dealers to move advanced replicas that fooled even the richest buyers, including someone with Drake's kind of cash. That's how deep the game had gotten. Fake history for real money. But here's where Suge's move turned strategic. His interviews weren't just about dragging Drake. They rebranded Suge as the guardian of Death Row's legacy and the protector of Pac's memory. Even from behind bars, he positioned himself as the one man who could separate truth from myth, real from fake.
Now I'm gonna ride with the homie that's calling me from the joint any day.
Well, we got a $100 bet over the HIV thing.
Okay, well, he definitely was on the PC yard. That's...
Listen, if
Did
you're
you
saying...
see that photo I put up with those?
Yes,
bro,
with the older people.
The
yes.
only play ain't no older people. Hey, that don't work up in there. The only place you taking photos like that with that mixture of race and all of that is a PC yard.
In doing so, Suge Knight reminded the world that he's still a power player in hip-hop culture, locked up but never silenced. While the culture was still reeling from Suge Knight's bombshell revelations about Drake's chain, hardly anyone stopped to think about the irony. This man dropping industry-shaking truth from behind prison walls was still fighting for his own freedom. The streets were debating jewelry authenticity while Suge was battling time itself. Inside those walls, Suge's reality couldn't be further from the glitz and headlines. The man who once ran hip-hop's most feared empire, Death Row Records, was now serving a 28-year sentence for voluntary manslaughter. It's wild to think about. Even from a prison cell, he's still commanding millions of views and dominating the conversation, showing his influence hasn't faded one bit. But beneath the viral clips and prison phone calls lies a harsher truth. At 60 years old, Suge's locked up in R.J. Donovan Correctional Facility down in San Diego, not eligible for parole until October 2034. That's nearly a lifetime away. His sentence traces back to the 2015 hit and run that killed Terry Carter and seriously injured Clee Bone Sloan, an incident that forever changed Suge's legacy, from feared mogul to convicted felon. That day, January 29, 2015, was chaos. Suge had shown up near a Compton film set for the NWA biopic Straight Outta Compton, a project already stirring tension because of old Death Row ties and rivalries. Reports say he'd been denied entry to a meeting involving Dr. Dre, and that denial set off a chain of events that spiraled fast and deadly. It was the moment where hip-hop power met street consequence, and it marked the tragic downfall of a man who once controlled the game with an iron fist.
Want to bet?
How much?
Whatever you say.
$100.
That's cool.
All right. So you're going to bet me $100 that Suge has HIV.
We'll give him a couple stacks if I'm wrong.
How would he have gotten it? There's only one way he could have gotten it in jail.
How?
If he was raped by, or he had consensual sex with other male inmates.
That meeting with Dr. Dre and Ice Cube spiraled into tragedy fast. What started as a confrontation turned deadly when Suge Knight threw his truck in reverse, running over Terry Carter and Clee Bone Sloan, killing Carter instantly and leaving Sloan badly injured. Suge's legal team tried to argue self-defense, saying he feared for his life and believed he was walking into a setup, but prosecutors painted a darker story. They described Suge as a man whose violent past had finally caught up with him, a figure who lived too long by street rules in a world that had moved on. And under California's 3 strikes law, that history hit him hard. The 2015 incident wasn't treated as a one-time mistake. It was viewed as the final act in a decades-long pattern of chaos and control. When sentencing came down in October 2018, Judge Ronald Cohen laid out the details with cold precision. The math was brutal. Every past conviction stacked against him. Every past brawl and assault counted. Suge's 1992 assault at Solar Records, which once earned him probation, now came back like a ghost from the past, extending his punishment far beyond what a first-time offender would have faced. The message from the court was clear. California wasn't giving him another pass. And now inside R.J. Donovan Correctional Facility, Suge's day-to-day life reflects both his fame and the danger that comes with it. Sources close to the prison system say he's kept in protective custody, separate from the general population, not out of privilege, but necessity. Too many inmates want to make a name off Suge Knight, testing their toughness against one of hip-hop's most infamous figures. Even locked up, Suge remains a legend and a target. Life in protective custody is a whole different world from the main yard. Movement is restricted, conversations are monitored, and interaction is limited to almost nothing. For a man like Suge Knight, who built his empire on dominance, presence, and fear, this isolation is a brutal shift. Gone are the days when his voice could command a room. Now every step is controlled, every word recorded. It's a far cry from the powerful image he once ruled the industry with. But even beyond the walls, fans are starting to worry. Recent photos of Suge have shown dramatic weight loss, sparking major speculation about his health. Some insiders whisper about serious medical issues, while others claim it's just the toll of age and prison life catching up to him. Either way, the transformation is impossible to ignore. Reports say Suge's been dealing with a list of health problems, blood clots, partial blindness, and complications from diabetes, conditions that have sent him in and out of hospital care multiple times. These health struggles have even been cited in court filings, with his lawyers arguing they've affected his ability to properly participate in his defense. Still, the conversation around Suge's health has gone far beyond medical talk. It's turned into street gossip and tabloid speculation.
The high term is 11 years, must be doubled under the strike law. Defendant is levied a term in state prison of 22 years. Pursuant to Penal Code Section 12022, Subdivision B, Subdivision 1, he is levied an additional consecutive 1 year in state prison. Pursuant to Penal Code Section 667, Subdivision A, Subdivision 1, prior conviction the defendant has admitted, he is levied an additional 5 years in state prison for a total unstayed term of 28 years.
Some in the hip-hop scene have thrown out wild, unverified claims about his condition, sparking heated arguments about what's really going on with the former death row boss. It's the perfect storm of prison life, fame, and public curiosity, and it shows how even the biggest legends can't escape the rumor mill once they're behind bars. Suge's downfall is a reminder that in prison, status means nothing, not money, not fame, because even icons get stripped down to just another name on the cell block. Even from behind bars, Suge Knight proves he's still got pull. Despite being locked up, he's managed to keep his name echoing through the halls of hip-hop. Those interviews about Drake's chain weren't just random calls. They were strategic moves, the latest in a long line of plays that show Suge still knows how to control the narrative. He's using every ounce of his limited communication privileges to remind the culture that his voice still matters, and clearly, people are listening. Inside prison, though, Suge's reputation has changed. He's not the same feared boss from the death row glory days. He's now seen with a kind of cautious respect. At 60, with his health slipping and his power replaced by legend, the vibe around him is different. The intimidation that once made people tremble has evolved into quiet acknowledgement. Even inmates know they're in the presence of a man who helped build hip-hop history. And while Suge might be confined by walls, his influence is still roaming free. He's proof that some voices can't be silenced, no matter how many locks are on the door. Now, if you made it this far, make sure you like, subscribe, and share, and I'll see you on the next one.